everybody. Welcome to the DePINed Podcast. I'm your host, Tom Trowbridge. I'm thrilled to have Jesse Adams here, co-founder of UpRock. UpRock is basically a crowdsourced AI data network. So welcome, Jesse.
Thank you so much, Tom. Great to have you, or great to have me, and I appreciate your time today.
Well, listen, Jesse, thrilled to have you on. AI is obviously, the hot topic. It's not going away. Tell us give us the details on what UpRock is doing exactly.
Yeah, so we were working on different startups after we sold a crypto browser recently, and we just wanted to be in the crypto space no matter what. And one of the things we always saw was the onboarding issues, right? Everyone understands it's really hard to onboard people in Web3. And so we were using AI tools just personally to move faster, like ChatGPT and all those kind of things. And first of all, it was mind-blowing that actually it was real, that it works, right? But then very quickly we realized, this AI thing, if this is supposed to be the future, it feels very censored. It feels like some clumsy moderation policies are in between you and the internet. And if we feel this way, we're like, other people probably feel this way as well. And so we were thinking, how can we, if we're going to live in this future where AI can eat our lunch, we need to really marry Web3 principles with AI sooner than later, I think. And so I think you're not going to trust a model unless the data is open, decentralized, it's owned by the people, it's incentivized, humanity to share the world's knowledge and everyone benefits. And that was a eureka moment for UpRock. And so we thought the only way you can do that is have a bunch of people incentivized to run nodes, provide data to the network. And that was kind of what UpRock, how it got started.
Listen, philosophically, I'm in violent agreement with you. And I think you can see the criticisms, and I've even written some pieces on this, the criticisms of ChatGPT biases. You can see things that are built into the outcome of those models, right? Whether it's the image generator in Gemini, whether it's the sort of PC jokes or only some jokes allowed in it, right? Like you can sort of glimpse into biases. And so you've got two biases. You've got data bias, and then you have actual kind of prompt bias or prompt editing, and then you have output editing as well, right? So are you focused on all of those, or are you focused on the data, the core data problem to begin with?
I think the hardest part is just everyone assumes the AI agent is crawling the internet like a database, but really cannot do that. It's just maybe loading one site at a time. But companies like Cloudflare block you if you were to load 1,000 sites, for example. And so really, since the internet is so dynamic today, the same URL, whether you're loading it from Florida to New York or Singapore or Seattle, it's going to actually show you something different. Even an Amazon URL for a shoe brand, it might even show you different pricing, different title, different content. And so if you really want to be able to know what's happening on the internet from any given place or IP, you have to do it from a physical phone, I think. And then you're going to get far superior insights because you're going to get more superior input from a lot of what's actually happening on the internet from any given phone. And that's a hard part to do, just being able to get that hyper local IP data at scale, essentially.
So you've lost me a little bit there because you're talking about getting it from one phone. Return to what UpRock is doing and how that the sort of crowdsourcing and individual phones are kind of the solution here.
Yeah, so we built their native applications on Android and iOS. We have about 1.8 million installs. 90% of it is actually on mobile. We do have a Mac, Windows, and Linux native applications as well. But essentially, it's a headless browser in the app. So we do not build browser extensions. We don't want to tie you to your personal browser history. We don't care about your personal browsing data. It's just we're able to run a browser in the background on the phone. So basically loading URL pages and scraping that. And then that's the data we store and sell, essentially.
And then what happens? So I'm a user, I have a phone, I upload UpRock, right? The application. UpRock in the background is basically scraping the web.
Correct.
And then that data is then sent from my phone to where?
So we store some of it. We have, and essentially there's kind of three products that people pay for. So we're just getting started with our first customers. One's called DATS Project. What they're doing is they're loading, they have 4 banks in Turkey that are customers. And so in that specific case, those banking customers want to be able to load their site and see that it's not blocked. What's the uptime? How fast is their site loading? Is their site secure? And they want to be able to do that from an actual device so they can see what are people seeing when they actually load their banking site from their phone. And then we show them a report. So there's a lot of things you can do as far as network intelligence tools, analytics, but also just is my site up or down, or also just what are people seeing and just scrape that content. So that's one example of it. So just being able to load and show what are people seeing there. Another customer wants to be able to scrape social media sites and be able to do that at scale. Because if you were to do that through just one server, eventually Cloudflare type companies know those IP addresses and they'll block those data centers. So if you really want to know, so that company wants to be able to just follow hashtags and just a lot of different site profiles and URLs, and they cannot do that really well without using like a network that's decentralized, essentially.
So the first set of applications I got, they're basically crowdsourced testing or availability testing, if you will, of websites, of experiences, etc. Get it?
Uptime
But the
monitoring,
second
website monitoring.
uptime monitoring, right?
Yep.
Great. And that's probably then much cheaper than using a centralized service. You probably can offer more real. You can also kind of for a higher kind of variability or higher higher. What do you want to call it? Authenticity probably than just having one company do it potentially. But the second part I don't grasp, because then you're talking about those users having to log into social media platforms as well, right? It's not just their phone running around in the background or their profiles that you're accessing through them.
Yeah, well, right now everything is passive, so we don't require you to create a social media account. So it's anything that doesn't have it's not blocked by a password or a login system. So anything front facing. So it's mostly like TikTok or LinkedIn. Like Twitter, you can't do. Also, we don't want to piss off Elon Musk and get blocked from X for scraping their site, and so they're blocked by a password. So it's totally legal and fine to do it from front facing sites, but if it's behind a password or a login, then we won't touch that right now. Or for probably foreseeable future, maybe. But we want to. Currently, it's really just passive, so we don't really require you
Right.
to have to
That's
log
what I
in
expect.
anywhere.
You'd want
Yeah,
that to be the case. So you download this once, and then your phone is working in the background
correct.
to gather whatever information
Yeah,
you have a need for.
yeah.
And so,
I guess maybe I can give you a use case here. Like, let's say you're a shoe competitor and you want to understand, like, what shoes are selling well, what's the inventories, what brands are interesting. And so you might actually take the same Amazon URL, one shoe brand, and if you load it in Miami, Seattle, New York, even though it's Amazon, they might actually show you different inventory levels and pricing. And so you want to see that every day. You'd want to actually load that page, once a day maybe, or every 4 hours, and then maybe actually store that information as well, so that over time you have all this great data. And now you can say, oh, by the way, this shoe brand is actually selling the same shoe for this price in Seattle, but this price in Miami, this price in New York. And here's the inventory levels over time. Here's how it's changing. Here's what's selling out. And you can feed all that into whatever model you need to get really amazing output, right? But if you just were to only load one site from Seattle, then you're not going to get that rich insights, because you really need to load that same Amazon URL from multiple devices. So people in those places, in that location, you can see exactly what that customer would see when they go to that Amazon shoe URL. And so this is why it's so rich and important to be able to actually load it from a local IP from a device instead of just like one data center, because you're just not going to get accurate picture of what's happening on the internet in that specific, for whatever trend, topic, or product you're interested in. And that's why it's so powerful.
listen, I grasp that. But in that shoe example, I don't know, you tell me the amount of pricing, 10, 20, 30 pricing, you don't need 1.8 million downloads to get that. Right? If you have 30, 50, 200, you're probably fine. So aren't you, what's the reason or the need to have hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of users to accomplish what might be accomplished in a much smaller number?
Well, first of all, just people, everyone wants more and more and more and more data. That's just not going away. It's just growing and growing. You do need to be able to distribute it out. I mean, for example, if you were to follow, let's say, 100 hashtags, or like there's a big event, the presidential election's coming up. So you want to see kind of sentiment online. If you were to follow, let's say, 100 hashtags of, whether it's Kamala or Trump, and so first of all, you're following the hashtags, but then you also might want to follow the interactions of humans' stories around those things. So it starts to scale pretty quickly of like how much content you want to scrape and just monitor every day. If you were to do that with just a few thousand devices, every company's, I see a need where every company's going to want to do this, and they're going to assume their AI agents can just crawl the internet like a database, a queryable database. We want to be able to create the glue so that AI model can actually connect to the internet and actually do that. And once that becomes really useful for you, I think people are going to want to have multiple agents and constantly scraping the internet all the time. So that's why I think a few thousand devices won't cut it. You really want to be able to spread maybe 1,000 jobs across 10,000 devices, and you just won't get blocked. Because today you would, if you were to, if you think about the Web 2 space, this is why proxy businesses need to have so many proxies, because you have to constantly rotate them around all the time, because eventually there's a whack-a-mole game, or large swaths of IPs could be blocked from you. And so it's just better to have many devices. And yeah.
Tell me about the AI component here, because it sounds like what you're doing is executing specific tasks that customers request, and sounds like that might be AI may enhance that, but it's not like you're making a model to do that, right? You're using, as you mentioned, AI agents that are task specific, it sounds like.
Yeah, we're not touching the AI models. We're not training the models. That's really just providing the network to provide the data that the AI models need. I think where we haven't done this yet, but where AI can help us out is, since the just kind of the different modalities for AI, for being able to understand images, or if you take a screenshot, the AI can discern whether it's an ad or it's a home page, just so you actually get just better enhanced data scraping by using AI model. That could be really helpful for us, because in the past you might have to write a bunch of custom code to say remove this ad, or this is the actual article, this is actually the image for their article, this is the picture. Now AI can kind of look at the website and just get it.
But what you're talking about is just AI enhancing and making your business model a little better. But It's doing that for a ton of businesses all over, right?
Right.
So it's not like your business is AI specific necessarily. It's more that you're employing AI the way many people are. Is that fair?
Yeah, I would say so. I think where we want to be, just get really good at, is so that when we look at like building our APIs out, making sure that they work with all the different models that people prefer to use, so that if they want to have real-time, large-scale data collection, and you'd be able to plug it into whatever AI model whether it's Claude or ChatGPT or whatever. We want to be able to just make that really easy. But like you said, we're not training them AI models. We're not spending time there. We just foresee a future where the data is going to be, and also as a startup, there's so much money in the AI side of it. You can't compete really these days, but the data side, you can. You really can compete with on the data side.
And so, help me understand then. Let's back up for a second and talk about your background, and then we're going to dig back into the project. So let's talk about Jesse for a second.
Okay, so my background, I'm very fortunate to have the same startup friends and founding team for 15 years. And our first successful tech company was called MyCandy. It was the first and largest adult app store. And that came around right when Android hit. So if you live in Seattle, you have a lot of friends that work for T-Mobile, Verizon. And one of our friends was saying, hey, there's going to be a new operating system called Android. It's probably going to be the first thing that can actually compete with the iPhone. And they're going to be the part of the Open Handset Alliance, which means you can allow third-party apps. And so just kind of jokingly, we said, you know what? Someone's going to probably build an adult app store, or like a porn app store. And, talking about it a little longer, we're like, you know what? We kind of Googled it and saw none of the major brands trademarked anything. We saw nothing online. We're like, I can't believe no one's doing this. We thought maybe a Playboy or, one of the big brands would do that. And just as you would do with friends, you're just like, let's just build it ourselves. And so that's what we did. We launched it first. It took about 4 months. It was a full-fledged native application. We had a developer portal. You can basically upload your APK files, comic books, ebooks, video. And we launched it on Thanksgiving Day, right around Android launch, around Android Does campaign. And it was pretty amazing. So we had a chicken and egg problem. No apps yet, except for one called Dildroid. It's basically an Android. You just expand it, makes your phone vibrate. And then it took us some time, but it's a technology company. We had to learn how to build everything from scratch because we didn't realize how much stuff is blocked on the internet for that kind of content. So we couldn't use MailChimp or PayPal or Stripe or the Play Store or the App Store. And that was, I think, maybe my first foray into crypto or just Bitcoin in general, because we were starting to see censorship issues. And that's and alternative forms of payment. And adult industry is very similar to kind of how crypto, they're very innovative about bringing credit card processing online. But it was a great experience because we had to build our own distribution channels. We had to use, simple email service with Amazon. Like we just had to be really scrappy. And eventually we sold that company to a live stream company here in Seattle. And then as we were building that app store, we started to build privacy tools for our customers because they were all asking us, hey, these phones, we don't have two separate phones anymore. People are using for work and personal. My kids play Angry Birds on my phone, and I'm also using your store. Can we separate it or give me some privacy tools? So we started to build like VPN extensions and tools like that for other browsers. And then I think we thought, kind of entrepreneurial thinking, let's think bigger here. Why are we putting band-aids on other browsers? Why don't we just build a better browser? And that was kind of our crazy idea number two. So we called that Tenta. It was a little more nerdier than Brave. It's a crypto browser, had built-in VPN. We did a lot of Web3 tools, so like you can load .eth domains without having extensions. It was fully encrypted. We thought if you're building a browser of the future, you're thinking, what would be, every other browser sells your data. What can we build a better browser? Let's build one that actually protects your data. And so we thought of all the things that you can do to put power back into the individual's hands was encryption. And so that was the cornerstone of that browser. We encrypted everything. We had an encrypted storage layer. We didn't store your password or files on any server. It was all locally on the device. And again, that's really where we went down the rabbit hole with crypto to see just building a browser of the future, and so that was great experience. We built our own VPN protocol. It was instant. It took us a year to build that thing. Because if you think about VPN, usually, how it takes about a second to connect. And we're like, if a browser takes a second to connect, you'll never use it. And so we took a year to build it, called Mimic. That got the attention of Avast, which is a cybersecurity company in Europe. And they like the tech and team. They were going to invest in us. And eventually they just made a really great offer right before COVID hit. So it was a really just perfect timing. And then I think that was a really good success story for us. That's when we really turned from entrepreneur to entrepreneur, a little bit. And that was great. And so that was in the same team from Mike Henny to Tenta to now. After that browser was sold, that's what we're saying. Like, what do you want to do next? So like, we don't care what we want to do next. We just want to be in Web3 no matter what. And that's what, that's how it all got started.
Super interesting. Well, I mean, listen, having a privacy background is pretty helpful in crypto and is a great kind of jumping off point. I think that's a real kind of core belief and core kind of tenet of a whole bunch of the crypto industry.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like, we just love the internet. I grew up with it. Helped me be successful, and we're just all kind of true trajectories, which is why I really gravitated to Web3 principles. We saw this trajectory of just censorship and things being blocked. I've been feeling that myself for the past two startups constantly. And then the Web3 revolution happens where you want to own your own data and privacy preserving. And like this place is great, it's very rebellious. And that's kind of when the adult industry was as well, very rebels in that world, very technologist people too. There's a lot of overlap actually with those two industries. And so I just love it. So I want to be able to contribute to that with UpRock. And I think AI is amazing, but as we noticed with even the browser and selling a private browser, if you make something so convenient, everyone's willing to give up the privacy and data like that, which is why Facebook's of the world is so big. And, Web3 is making all this progress of trying to reverse that trend. And then AI comes along and it's so convenient. I think people are going to just give up all your data all over again. I really think can eat Web3's lunch because it's moving so much faster than people realize. And you really have to build the network now and decentralize it, at least the data side for sure, because it's starting to already gain, it's whether it's data. The two things you're competing for is data and compute in this world. And the data side, we should decentralize it and have the people on it. So, or at least tokenize it so that you're incentivized to contribute. And it's the world's knowledge, right? So the internet is basically all of us humans sharing our stories online, essentially, in data, right? So.
Right, and I grasp that, and I'm just thinking what your role in that is, because there are certain projects out there that are really working to do that to the next level, right? Like building
Yeah,
using open data sets to train models that have they're open source and
yeah,
have decentralized browsers like Venice AI, right, that are really focused on being a decentralized open competitor to ChatGPT, and I frankly think those should gather and garner more trust in the future. And I think at some point people get fed up with the obvious biases of the traditional runs. The data you're finding though is much more, what's the right word, much less sensitive. It is, so far at least it sounds that way. Maybe there's the potential you're going someplace down the road that is more sensitive, but what the price of shoes are in different places is not something that is um as difficult to discover, I would think, or um as sensitive, I guess.
what do you mean by sensitive?
Well, I mean, phrase it differently. Um, that is a very commercial application, and that's great,
Oh
and
yeah,
that's necessary, right? Without commerciality, none of this goes anywhere. So I grasp that,
yeah,
but that is a um, when I think of the benefits or the risks of centralization, the risks of censorship, etc.,
yeah,
it's not covering what pricing is of certain products. It's about ideas. It's about communications. It's about other philosophies in a way, and it's
yeah,
about data, right? It's about some
yeah,
types of data. Is maybe look, listen, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's about inflation, and maybe your application can have a different view on what inflation is versus what other people want you to believe inflation is. Maybe that's the case. I don't know. Tell me if I'm thinking of it too narrowly.
well, I think the biggest, I mean, what's important here, it's being able to, it's real time information is what you need, and you want to be able to, because like I said, whether different IPs show different content. So even an inflation report, like that's actually a great example, because we have a partnership with Koi, and that's one of their customers that we can help provide data for. But if you want to do inflation, what would you do? So this company does the real time inflation reports. Basically, they load airplane site, airline sites, car rentals, restaurants. They have like a certain industries they follow and track how much pricing is for those industries over time, and then they provide a inflation report. And so that's one a good example of, you want to see what's, because like, airlines actually great because what depends on what your country, and they might show you different pricing depending on your country. And so one of the hacks for airlines is actually using a VPN, because you might get a cheaper price. Um, and so that's people just, that's a kind of a travel hack. But the case more, what I'm saying there is like, if you were running an inflation report, if you were just loading it from you, if you're just one individual running a site from your database or from your computer, if just you're the company, you're not going to get an idea of what is the airline actually showing people around the world. And you can actually do that if you're loading it from a phone. Okay, oh, this person got, so here's the average pricing for this industry in America. This is the average pricing for people in Turkey or whatever. Um, yeah. So I would say it's like real time information is important. Also, the AI models today, they're basically a genius teenager, but doesn't know what's happening in the world, knows today current knowledge, but doesn't actually know what's happening in the world. And so if you want a model to not just say there's an event that happened, but maybe also you want to explore how do people feel about that event. And so now you're going to want to crawl conversations, articles, the comments. Like then you get a really accurate picture of like, this is how people really feel about this topic or trend or hashtag or whatever you're following.
But don't you need passwords for that? Like that's the key. Because I totally agree with you, but that's the hard bit. Like you can't get on Twitter, you can't get on Facebook, can't get on Instagram. You can't get on New York Times. Like where can you go to find that information?
Uh, there's still a lot there. I mean, LinkedIn is totally open. There's people publish content on articles all day long. TikTok is pretty open. Um, even the comment sections of news articles. I mean, a lot of it's still pretty open out there. Um, yeah, it's an interesting problem though, because as AI, as you know, there's no one AI agent that can crawl the internet in real time and scrape it really easily, and no one's really built that the application yet. Nothing's really taken off. You know, you ChatGPT, like you say, it does it a little bit, but you can tell something's blocking or censoring something. Um, I think as we do better and we make it easier, um, and other companies are going to constantly want to do the same thing, get data from the internet. It's going to be interesting to see how many sites will decide to put a paywall or some gated system, and that could turn the whole internet closed. And so that's not our problem. I mean, that could make like AI needs all the data, so a lot of sites could close up, but it's going to be a horrible user experience. I think the market will and consumer choice will win there, and people will keep most sites open because you just don't want to add friction to your customers to your site. So I think a lot of it will stay open, but yeah, it is an interesting problem because we'll have to go down that road, or if all the major sites are paywalled or gated, yeah, that is an issue. Yeah.
Well, I'd argue that for that use case we talked about, most are already gated, maybe with the exception of TikTok, which I'm not as familiar with. But then the question becomes, I'll just ask the question this way: XAI, exclusive access to Twitter, that's got to be valuable. That's got to be interesting, right? Given the scale there, and obviously Meta will have exclusive access to Facebook and Instagram, presumably, right? That's also super valuable. So
Yeah.
those two engines each have the ability to go and get the data you're getting as well and marry it with the data they have exclusive,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. Yeah,
And
exactly.
so right, so and is there what is there anything in terms of scale of your devices that provides any advantage versus the centralized nature of XAI or ChatGPT or whichever else?
Yeah. I mean, X is such like a singular thing because it's everyone's news content, right? Um, we see ourselves being a complement to like obviously we'd love to have X like Twitter as or X as a customer, right? So like you said, they have their own data that their Twitter users or X users are sharing, but you also might want to have Grok crawl the internet and get a lot of real time hyperlocal data, and scale it that up, and then Grok will basically become pretty amazing because it has like real time news, but you also want to see other articles or just other websites, and the and the and the customers of Grok are going to assume Grok can do both. And right now, it really can't. Grok is really good at Twitter data, or X data, but it's not really going around the internet. And doesn't have the capabilities to actually, go around the internet. So we see ourselves as helping those customers out. Um, but yeah, I mean, but besides the specifically social media, there's just so much. I mean, there's so much content and data and websites and whatever you're interested in. Whether it's like whether you're a prosumer or a small business or a content creator, you're going to still want to be able to, whatever topic or product or trend you want to care about, you still want that AI model to help you make superhuman decisions with better insights. If that agent's actually able to go out and get and just crawl, even the idea of being able to crawl 10 sites, 10 websites every day, that's very convenient instead of having you have to open 10 browsers every day and just load the same sites over and over again. Just for having an AI just do that, even it's great. It just saves you time, saves you a ton of time. You don't have to open a bunch of browsers, use your human brain to like process 10 pages all the time, right? Now you can have AI just follow whatever trend and topic products, and then distill it down and just talk to the agent like a friend and get some insights. So yeah, I think just a sheer time saving that of having an agent be able to load many sites every day or every five whatever time you need it.
So I get that, and that's super valuable for an agent to do, grasp it entirely. But how does that tie into having all these phones and all these devices? Because that AI agent, all those AI agents could come off of one computer or one cluster or whatever, or one server, right?
If it was one server, you would eventually that server would definitely be blocked.
All right.
Cloudflare will find you.
Fair.
You know,
No,
yeah,
fair.
like,
And you mentioned that earlier. Fair
yeah.
enough. But I mean,
I mean, definitely, it'll definitely be blocked because Cloudflare always will rate limit you or block you, and not just that company, but many companies do that. Um, you can't, you won't be able to block large swaths of the internet if you're gonna end up blocking a million devices. You're blocking a lot of IP addresses, you know. So you
yes.
can't do
Okay.
that. So you have
So
to,
it's more to avoid being blocked. That's the
yeah.
benefit of the big number of devices.
And if you distribute them out, it's faster. It's, if you're doing it from a local IP, the site might load faster. So there's lots of just optimization, efficiency issues too. Like, why load it from, load it from exactly the location you need it from the device that's in that location, for example. So just there's things are just faster, a little more efficient. But really, it's a big part is like being able to load a lot of sites all the time. You will get eventually blocked. Um, and
And
for
do you
that,
use phones versus desktops because phones are always on?
yes. Um, it's always on your person and knows its location. That matters. Everyone has a phone. That's where all the customers are at. That's where all our growth is. I mean, 90% of our installs coming from iPhone and Android. Um, crypto tends to be desktop first because it's just the mobile experience for crypto kind of sucks. And that's just where the customers are. It's just, going through the App Store and the Play Store is also amazing because they help do they help vet and do essentially KYC, right? So everyone who has the App Store has to create an account, credit card, all that stuff. So we don't have to do so much vetting. So in crypto, like our desktop apps is so easy to fake an account and create a fake emails, and desktop is just a nightmare. You just have a lot of clones and farms and bots. But on mobile, it's great for many reasons. And by the way, mobile data, if you just look at our Web 2 counterparts, mobile data is more lucrative too. If you know it's from a unique real device, real human mobile IP in the proxy business, companies like Bright Data can sell mobile data for like $25 gigabyte. Even the competitors, smaller ones, might do 5 or 10. It's usually it's like 2 or 3 times more than desktop data.
Fascinating. Did not know that. Well, tell me. So, is there a token model for UpRock, and if so, how would that look?
Yeah, so as we have basically a reward program, and so people earn tokens for sharing with their friends and family, doing things that help grow the network, essentially keeping the phone on so that we can actually send data tasks to your device. And if you complete one of those tasks, whether it's loading a URL, whatever the task is, then you can get reward for that. So that's those are the main actions. Is just being able to turn on on iPhone. We have iPhone doesn't run the background as well as Android does, so it's getting better and better. But we also send push notifications. So if you log in every day, some companies just need you to keep the app open for like a minute or two, not too long. And so on iPhone specifically, you do have to ping the network and say, hey, keep the app open or check your wallet or whatever the thing is, so that we can actually run tasks and do some and have you earn tokens. Um, or you can install a widget because the widget can actually run in the background a little bit better, and so that helps as well. But yeah, we try to keep it real passive. I think why DePIN is so awesome is it really is the world's best reward program in the making. It's awesome at onboarding because everyone and their grandmother today understands data is the new oil. We don't have to sell that story too hard. Everyone gets it. We always hear that story, and we've all read the articles, but it's like, cool, what do you do about it? Well, we make it really easy. You can help you sell your unused internet or your bandwidth or compute while you sleep, and that message really resonates well and just people understand that. And why it's amazing as a reward program is because if you think about even if you think about every reward program out there, you have to always buy something first to get a reward first back. Whether it's cash back or Starbucks gift card, you got to buy 1 cup of coffee before you get one. 10 cups of coffee before you get one free. In this case, people can see like, oh, cool, my unused internet. Check the app in an hour later, and you start seeing your tokens being earned. And it's amazing. So so most people can see it just kind of passive. And then I think for us, we call it reward program because I think every good reward program, when you earn points, then you should be able to do something with them instead of just cashing out all day long. And so for us, we think a lot about this because I think a lot of DePIN projects don't go further than just earn our token. That's all it is, like download the sensor or get our hardware or whatever. And if it's just earned, and that's just sell pressure all day long, you're just basically cashing out. I think long term, you really have to figure out more ways to make your token useful, get more, bang for your crypto bucks. So essentially, when you earn our token, we want you to be able to, the table stakes, right? Obviously, stake it. If you swap it, cool. But also be able to spend it, redeem it for rewards. When you have over 1 million installs worldwide, basically that's a marketplace. We know that business well. It's an app store business, right? Now we can actually go out and get discounts on customers' behalf and give them good deals. So instead of you cashing out, why don't you spend your tokens on paying for your phone bill or subscription or buy this game or app, and then make crypto really useful. You can spend it on products in real life. So I think that's where it's going to go, and I think that's going to be more healthy tokenomics too, instead of just download our app and cash out.
Right, but if someone's using the token to buy something for their phone bill, won't that provider just be selling that token to generate the same revenue as if the customer sold it for cash themselves?
Well, there's companies kind of like we can buy gigabytes and airtime minutes in bulk. If you have a large enough user base, we can actually do some arbitrage deals where we can get a really good price for airtime or gigabytes when you're buying a bunch at once, and then you can really easily have those tokens swapped to pay for your, basically top up your phone or pay for airtime minutes using tokens. Um, you have to make that really frictionless and easy to swap, and on the phone you can do that because people have, we can get those permissions. But yeah, that there's brokers out there where you have to buy stuff in bulk. When you start having a large enough user base, you get some good deals with like airtime and gigabytes.
So, but this token still gets sold effectively. So the point is, you're basically, there's a somewhat of an arbitrage, because if something costs $5, you're buying it in bulk for two, so someone can take $5 of tokens, and you only have to sell two in order
Yeah,
to make it work, right? So it reduces the
yeah,
pressure.
exactly.
The next question I have is, what happens to revenue when you generate revenue in the network? Where does that go? How is that handled?
Yeah, so we try to tie the token back always to whatever revenue we get. If you go to uprock.com/tokenomics, you can see a nice visual chart there. But we have a two-sided business. So on the consumer side, how we think about it is we want to incentivize our own team to make our product useful, and we get paid if people use it. So we always think about it as a reward program. If we and like we were very inspired by crypto exchanges and kind of real-time NFT royalty models, where uh, we make money when you actually use it. So whether that's basically transaction fees. So whether you're spending it, swapping it, staking it, redeeming it for some product, those small transaction fees, how we get paid. So portion of that goes to those fees. Portion of it goes to buy back and burn UPT. A portion of it goes to a liquidity pools. So if users bring in whatever the denomination, whether USDC or Solana, we just deepen whatever pools we need to do, and then a portion goes to our treasury to pay the bills. On the B2B side, very similar. So all the data revenue we get, whether it's fiat or USDC or whatever, we take that to pay for liquidity for the miners. So when people want to cash out, 40% goes to the community. The revenue pays for those tokens that are issuing essentially. And then 40% goes to our treasury, and then 20% goes to buy back and burn UPT and also liquidity pools. And that's how that works. So we thought about our tokenomics quite deeply. It's not like we have it perfect yet. We're going to evaluate it every maybe 6 months or quarter, a year. But yeah, that's how it works today. So and it really aligns our team too, because if we're not making transaction fees, means that no one's actually using the product. On the consumer side, we want you to be able to actually not just sit there and download the app and do nothing, and just and cash out. And on the reward side, the data side, that's pretty clear. Data is the actual revenue.
Fair enough. Listen, I love buyback and burn. That to me is the way to generate, really tie the token to the use of the network. And I feel like, but the only thing I'd say is there are projects I know that have 80% buy and burn. And that to me is what I love about that is there could be no outside token buyers, like literally none. And if if the network generates revenue, you have a massive buyer. As the revenue goes like this, there's just constant buy pressure on the token, which I think is very, very powerful. That's why one of the reasons I'm bullish on DePIN is that we're only kind of sector that has that capability because we're the only sector that is generating revenue outside the ecosystem that
Yep.
then comes in and is native demand for that token. So that I get.
Yeah.
20% is on the low side, obviously,
Yeah.
and sounds like you're going to have to generate a lot of revenue in order for that buy pressure to be substantial.
Yeah. Well, 20% for buyback, burn, and liquidity pools, but 40% of the data revenue is going to um, pay for the tokens we're issuing to the community. So it's I'd say so. We're keeping 40% for the treasury, but it's 20% for buyback, burn, and liquidity pool. But 40% is what's paying for all those tokens we're issuing too. So it's a big chunk actually to buy UPT, um, um, and pay
But
for
you
that.
say 40. I'm not sure I grasp that because that issuance 40% is for issuance. So I don't really understand. So if the issuance isn't already decided, then it's not issuance on a schedule from Treasury.
Yeah, well, it's um, how we think about it is like 40% of our data revenue is is basically pays for the it basically pays for the tokens that were like liquidity for the miner essentially, or liquidity for the people who are earning the token. Um, that's how we think about it because right now there is no
But
it's
where's that dollar go? If you earn a dollar, what happens at 40 cents? I'm not sure I understand that.
um like basically we use that to buy UPT. So we're saying, yeah, that revenue is paying for the UPT.
From the market.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
buy it, but it's
yeah.
not burned.
Yeah, and only yeah, exactly, not burned. And then I mean, a portion of it is to pay. Like I said, and then 20% goes to buy back and burn and some liquidity pools. Um, and like I said, we we we're not going to change it too often, but it's something we evaluate quite a lot. I mean, no one really has tokenomics perfect yet, and if there was one, it'd be great to know. But yeah,
Fluence is good. I think Fluence has it perfect. The problem is we're just a little bit early and we
yeah,
don't have the and we haven't scaled yet, so it hasn't been proven.
yeah,
But I mean, we have a little different setup, but just so you know, like because we're of a marketplace, right? So marketplaces can't implement buyback and burn because we're connecting the users with the product effectively, right? So we don't generate any revenue, so we can't avail ourselves of the buyback and burn. But for a group like you and an XNet or a Helium or a GeoNet, right, where there's actually or Spexy where the product has users and generates revenue. Buyback and burn to me is the easy and by far the best solution. But for marketplaces, it doesn't really work because if the marketplace is generating enough revenue for buyback and burn to be material, you're charging way too high a price and you're not going to last.
yeah.
So you kind of can't do it. So for us, the only opportunity is stake,
Uh,
and that is but our stake is I think set up very well where it's a dollar-based stake per CPU,
hmm,
but in our token, right?
gotcha.
So if you know how many servers have to come on, you know how much token the value has to be absorbed or bought or staked. And I
Yeah.
think that's also kind of unusual because most people just arbitrary token amount.
We think about that too. I mean, right now, 50% of our tokens are to bootstrap the network and the community to earn it. It's a fixed rate people can earn, so it's about 4.2 million tokens per month, and there's a slight deflationary. Like it goes down over time every month, just a little bit. Um, but yeah, but it helps make concrete numbers exactly like if that's how much whatever the price of a token today is in the market times that this many tokens are people earning every month, then we know exactly how much we need to be able to have on the buy side to be able to offset that essentially. And so it's really very clear goals we can have there, and how to get to that place. How much exactly revenue we need to get there, how much actual buy UPT we need to keep the buy pressure up, and also we our site today doesn't show any of this stuff, but we're actually working on a dashboard, like a real time dashboard, because I think it's going to be very powerful just to say instead of just telling people we have 1 million installs and how many installs we have. We really want to have a place where anyone can go live dashboard and you can constantly see our buyback and burn liquidity pool. You can see the revenue. We're just going to put all there, make it very transparent. And so it's not just showing a DePIN network, but really like the power of a network and how much available bandwidth or what all those kind of stats. We want to evolve it over time. I think that'll be really useful because it's like people ask these questions all the time, and people love to see that you're buyback and burning all the time. People love to see that.
Love to see it, and I guess the only comment I would have there is have some trailing periodicity where you have last month, last 6 months, whatever it is, of what that number is, right? So you have always this trailing numbers, right? That's the every day matters, every month matters, but like the trailing sort of smooth it out over some period of time is kind of cool.
Yeah. I think people are we do a good job with this. I think people are gonna share screenshots of it. Like, oh, this is cool. This is actually real time. They're sharing. They're not just their high level stats, but real details here. I think that'll be useful for us. I think our UpRock, our community will love that too. And we do a live stream every Thursday. And so instead of just doing slides, like I really just want to bring up the dashboard and say, here's what happened in the past week for our business. Here's the network numbers. Here's how much we burned. We can talk it through, give our commentary on the dashboard. So I think it's just going to be also good content and a great way to talk about a DePIN power network.
Good. Yeah. Certainly love it. We've got an election in the U.S. coming up. We talked about crypto early on.
Yeah.
Where do you think, obviously we chatted about, we mentioned Bitcoin earlier a little bit. Where do you think Bitcoin ends the year?
Oh gosh.
Gotta put everybody on the spot here,
Yeah. I mean, last time went so nuts. I think it could probably, I feel like it could, oh man. Maybe probably 120, 150. That's my guess.
All right.
Like over 100.
Big numbers. I like it. Good. Well,
I hope so.
I'm on the over 100 as well. We'll see if we
can. I think over 100.
Who knows?
Yeah, I think over 100 is very reasonable, or like possible in the realm of possibilities. I guess depends on who wins. Actually, sometimes I don't think about that. I think Bitcoin could do well no matter who's president. Honestly, maybe crypto in general won't do as well if the Democrat side wins, just because they're so anti-crypto. Last year Coinbase flew a bunch of entrepreneurs in the crypto space out to Washington D.C. Because the best thing to do is, if you want to make your case, go lobby them. So I was a lobbyist for crypto lobbyists for a day, which is fun. But the best thing you can do is not email your senator. That works. Phone call works. But if you actually show up from your state at their office, they will actually see you and just tell your story, your startup story, entrepreneur story, and say, hey, your lack of regulation is really affecting us. We have to, first of all, we have a limited budget as a startup. We waste too much money on legal fees. It's just crazy. And even the lawyers don't know what they're doing, just covering their ass, So we're just overspend on legal. We end up sending our companies overseas. So I have like 4 different businesses around the world just because we're so nervous and scared. I have so many other crypto friends that don't even want to do anything here because they're nervous about it. And so I think if, the president that has an NFT collection and crypto and actually issued his own coin, that'll probably help crypto the most. So I hope it's just more regular. I hope it's just more clear, because we just
listen, so we all do, but I agree with you. It's a big altcoin impact, less Bitcoin. 100% agree with you there. So Jesse, another question for you. Your application is based on a phone. There's a number of other DePIN applications also phone based. Do you see a future where people have multiple DePIN applications on their phone? Is there a master DePIN phone app that does everything, or do you need to download Ambien, which does noise, yours, which crawls the web, and are you earning from 5 or 10 different applications over time? Like, how does this play out? And then, by the way, is it the same people that are doing all 5 of these applications? You do one, you start to do them all.
Yeah. It's actually been a good strategy for us to we call it aggregate, bundle, grow. So when we work with other DePIN projects and allow our users to earn not just our token, but other tokens. So we did that a few different ones. So you can earn DATS per token with us. You can earn Koi. We've done a few different experiments there. Every time we do that, our install base will grow, and people love the idea of just being exposed to multiple DePIN projects in one app. So it's actually awesome for us. And it's a great way to build relationships with other DePIN companies as well. I think we want to get to scale faster, so that if you're a company that wants to do these data tasks, you would choose UpRock to upload and send your tasks through us, through our network. But yeah, I think probably in the future, I think you want to just download just a few apps to keep track of everything. I don't think you're going to want to have to download 15 DePIN apps. I think whoever makes it easy to just earn multiple tokens, because we're already seeing it. People love it. People love the idea of being exposed to multiple crypto projects in one app.
Well, you also mentioned multiple projects. What other DePIN applications or DePIN projects are you a fan of?
Oh, gosh. Well, our angel investors are the co-founders of Helium, so I gotta give them a shout out. They're the OGs. Sean's amazing. Sure. Sean's at Borderless Capital. He heads up the DePIN fund with Alvaro, and those guys are awesome. So yeah, obviously shout out to them. We're talking to Koi as well. So Koi is kind of a good partnership with us. They're very desktop focused, and they have a desktop application, and we work with them as well. And then DATS is another one where they do cybersecurity jobs. So I can probably give them a shout out just because we're working together. Let's see, what else? There's so many. I think also the DePIN's the term's overused, so sometimes it's not really DePIN, but
tell me about it.
Yeah.
Excellent. Listen, how do people find you? How are they going to know when this new dashboard is up? How do people follow Jesse and UpRock?
Yeah, so uprock.com, you can sign up there. Under 2 minutes, you can start earning. It's really simple, sleek. I love your feedback on that. If you go to x.com, uprock.com, so UPROCKCOM, uprock.com, or just search, you'll find us. We do live stream every Thursday. You can check that out. So we're going to start showing that dashboard on Thursdays. So if you're really interested in that. And then for me personally, I'm Jesse's Happy Hour on x.com/Jesse's Happy Hour. So
excellent. Well, listen, yeah. Jesse, great conversation. Thank you for joining. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate you, Tom. Thanks for your time.